Hello, welcome to Quick Learn. Have fun listening to the book. The book I'm going to read for you today is Drunk: How We Sipped, Danced, and Stumbled Our Way to Civilization. Do you usually drink? How do you feel about drinking being bad for your health? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. Everyone knows drinking is bad for your health. Alcohol is classified as a Class 1 carcinogen by the World Health Organization. Long-term alcohol consumption can induce a variety of cancers. There's a whole list of alcohol-related diseases, like cirrhosis, stroke, heart attack, etc. Besides being a health hazard, drinking also leads to car accidents and violence, harm to others. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control estimates, from 2006 to 2010, 8,000 per year in the United States, died from drinking too much. Economic loss due to alcohol consumption, up to $249 billion per year. Interesting. While we all know the dangers of drinking, but through the ages, man has never given up drinking. Throughout its long history, one of the greatest passions of mankind, just trying to get drunk. Even on the verge of starvation, people also shed precious grain to make wine. Even if you're so poor that you don't even have food, people also make wine from weeds and insects. In countries where alcohol is prohibited, some people will drink detergent or perfume as alcohol, because these products contain alcohol, and that's how you end up dead. No matter what happens, people can find a reason to have a drink. When you're sad, you have to drink to drown your sorrows. When you're happy, you raise a glass and talk business. To make friends with wine, it's all the more important to have a drink for a friend who understands you. Countless people have praised the charms of alcohol. It's like Li Bai said in Chongqing Wine, "Delicacies are not worth the price of admission." Wishing one could get drunk and never wake up. All the sages of old were lonely. Only the drinker keeps his name. Why alcohol is so attractive? Why do people risk their lives? I'll have one of those. Some scientists explain it as, to the ancients, alcohol has an actual function. For example, alcohol provides a lot of calories. Alcohol is also an antiseptic. Drinking can prevent infectious diseases. Because these features, ancient people developed the habit of drinking. It continues to this day. In the opinion of Slingerland, the author of the book, these explanations seem to make sense. But there's a loophole for alcohol in all of these features. It can actually be replaced by something else. Take sterilization. China has a tradition of drinking tea for thousands of years. Tea should be brewed in boiling water. This acts as a sterilizer, but at the same time, China's wine culture also has a long history, according to Sun Grant, to explain why people love to drink. It's important to find out what alcohol does uniquely, and this function has been working since time immemorial. Slingerland, name, he's a professor of philosophy at Columbia University in Canada. Acting as human evolution, co-director of the Center for Cognitive and Cultural Studies, he's also a renowned sinologist. Very familiar with Chinese culture, Slingerland has a wide range of interests. I like to drink, too. He's always been curious. Why do humans like to drink so much? After much research, Slingerland noted, drinking can boost creativity, and help people build trust, and creativity leads to invention and innovation. Trust drives cooperation. These are all necessary conditions for social development. From this point of view, alcohol is the driving force behind human civilization. That's why we can't live without alcohol. The book presented today, the book is Slingerland's summary of his research. The book combines evolutionary biology, neuroscience and anthropology findings, describes how alcohol can enhance creativity, build trust, also for how to reduce the harm of drinking. Slingerland also offered his opinion. I'll go through the 3 sections below, explaining the main points of the book for you. Firstly, why drinking increases creativity. Second, why drinking builds trust. Third, how to reduce the harm of drinking. Let's start with the first part, why drinking increases creativity. Creativity is an invaluable asset of humankind, from hunting tools in primitive societies, to the modern world of cars and airplanes and computers. It is through constant invention, it is only through this that human civilization can progress. But from a long time ago, one then realizes a problem. Rational thinking can get in the way of innovation. Many people have experienced this, faced with a new problem I hadn't encountered before. The harder you think, the less we can figure out how to solve the problem. When you give up thinking about it, take a shower and go for a walk. Inspiration comes to you on its own. Because innovation is a break from past experience, requires people to look at things from a new perspective, finding new ideas to solve problems, and rational thinking often starts from past experience. It's easy to get stuck in a rut. So when the brain stops thinking rationally, when you enter a state of relaxation, instead, you can think outside the box. Easier to get inspired. The part of the brain that does rational thinking is the prefrontal cortex, the outermost layer of the brain. Trying to get away from rational thinking, we're gonna have to deactivate the prefrontal cortex. In order to do that, people have invented many ways, like meditation and prayer, and various religious ceremonies. But these methods are more laborious, most convenient and popular. The way to do that is to anesthetize the brain directly. Let's take the prefrontal cortex offline for a while. If this happens, then people are more likely to be inspired to innovate. There are many substances that anesthetize the brain, like alcohol stimulants and wild psychedelic mushrooms. Of these substances, alcohol has one big advantage. It's easy to control the dosage, as long as you don't drink too much. It's just the right amount of intoxication. The state both enhances creativity, without too much negative impact. In contrast, stimulants and psychedelic mushrooms make it hard to control the dosage, maybe one bite. Delirium. I've been dizzy for a long time. Don't talk about innovation at this point. I could have lost my life. From this point of view, alcohol is the safest brain anesthetic. Since ancient times, many artists see alcohol as a source of inspiration. Shakespeare once said, "Wine makes the mind work." Zhang Yu, a poet of the Tang dynasty, wrote a piece in a drunken stupor, praised the wonders of wine. In the poem, it is written that there is no limit to the joys of drunkenness. Prettiest thing you've ever done, all that moves is the dance. First words into a poem. In addition to creating art, there's still a lot of work to be done that needs alcohol for inspiration. Google has a special whiskey room. When programmers hit a creative bottleneck, they'll come here. Have a drink and a chat. That's where a lot of the ideas come from. In the author's opinion, as opposed to drinking alone, drinking with others is more creative. Aforementioned, innovation requires new perspectives, thinking outside the box to solve problems. New perspectives and ideas that are hard for us to come up with, maybe someone else can figure it out. So when it comes to problems, talk to someone. Listen to the advice of others. It's all going to help us. But many will have psychological baggage. It's embarrassing to ask for help. Fear of being laughed at. Also, the person giving the advice will have a mental baggage, the burden of worrying that your ideas may be whimsical, very stupid. That's where the alcohol acts as a lubricant. After a few drinks, people feel relaxed and happy, willing to speak freely. There's no shame in speaking out, and not worrying about sounding bad advice. In this friendly atmosphere of exchange and collision, it's easy to get new ideas. Partying and drinking also promotes innovation and progress throughout society. According to American economist Miles Andrews, the bar is a meeting place for creative people. They exchange ideas in bars. A large number of new inventions and technologies have been incubated. To prove the point, Myers examines the Prohibition movement in the United States. The United States implemented Prohibition in 1920. Nationwide ban on the production and consumption of alcohol. People can only drink in secret, in private. Naturally, there's no more bars. In order to study the impact of prohibition on social progress, Miles found it. New patent registration techniques in different regions. Here's something to keep in mind. Although national prohibition was enacted in 1920, before that, a lot of areas have been banning alcohol for years. Myers found, prior to 1920, wine-free zone, the number of new patent registrations per year should be greater than that of the wine intake region, from 1920. Areas that previously did not take in alcohol are beginning to do so. The number of new patent registrations has also begun to decline. The rate of reduction is approximately 15% per year, according to Myers. It shows that the bar is a source of a lot of inspiration. The author agrees with this. When he was working at Columbia University, there's a bar next to the university. Some of the teachers go to a bar every Friday afternoon. Have a little drink. Have a little something to eat. And then we'll talk about everything. These parties seem to have no purpose, but their collision of ideas led to many results, including a new research center, an award-winning journal article, and a series of far-reaching studies. The author is a firm believer in, if you're going to a coffee shop or a milk tea store for a party, there is no way these results could have been achieved. Only, the authors also emphasize, the premise of enhancing creativity through alcohol intake is that, you can't drink too much. As the saying goes, a little wine goes a long way. Idiom, a few drinks are good for the soul. Drink heavily to hurt one's health. Here's an introduction to the concept. It's called blood alcohol concentration. It's the blood alcohol level. Trying to boost creativity with alcohol, blood alcohol concentration should be approximately 0.8%. You only need 2 or 3 beers to get to that level. This is when a person is in a state of slight intoxication. The mind becomes more flexible and open. I can still think and talk. Great for innovation. If the blood alcohol concentration reaches 0.1%, people get drunk. Unable to think and talk properly. If the blood alcohol concentration is 0.3% or higher, people talk nonsense. Unable to stand, or even fainted. Speaking of which, to summarize the first part, the prefrontal cortex of the brain is responsible for rational thought. It limits creativity. So in order to increase creativity, people need to anesthetize their brains. Among the various anesthetic substances, alcohol is easier to control the dose. It'll be safer. As opposed to drinking alone. Drinking with others is better for creativity. A lot of people share their ideas in bars. To a certain extent, promotes innovation and progress throughout society. The development of society requires more than just innovation, it also requires human cooperation. Everything we eat, wear, and live in. It's all about division of labor. If there is no cooperation, a man must hunt and sew his own clothes. Build your own house. Then mankind would be stuck in a primitive society, and cooperation is based on trust. It's only by trusting that people won't lie to us. So we can work with others. In the second part below let's talk about how alcohol helps people build trust. Many scientists have pointed out that, trust comes from emotional commitment, like love of friendship, honor, etc. In this respect, the prefrontal cortex of the brain also hinders trust. The more developed the prefrontal cortex, the more rational people become. Not easily influenced by emotions. If one thinks exclusively in terms of rationality, thinking only of your own gain or loss, neither can empathize with others. And you don't feel guilty about cheating on people. Then you must be afraid to trust him. Worried he'll stab you in the back for personal gain. How can we solve this problem? Same as boosting creativity, people can use alcohol to anesthetize their brains. Let's take the prefrontal cortex offline for a while. Thus building trust. More specifically, alcohol is good for building trust in 2 ways. The first benefit is to create an emotional connection. After getting drunk, it's easier for people to let go of their inhibitions. To have fun. From an outsider's point of view, a group of people get together to drink and sing, "I'm so drunk I can't even walk." Throwing up all over the place. This is obviously not good. But from the perspective of the parties, in this process, we put aside our differences of identity and position, show your true self to each other. Good for bringing people closer together, create an emotional connection. There's a saying abroad. Friends who drank and puked together. That's a true friend. So throughout the ages, alcohol is a powerful tool for bonding. Wedding in English words. In Old English it means bridal ale. At the wedding, the bride and groom's families will gather for drinks, thereby creating an emotional link between the two families, coping with the future together. Many countries, alcohol was also used to strengthen the soldiers' loyalty to the monarch. Former President of the United States, Washington, D.C., seeing alcohol as an important part of the military ethos, he urged Congress to establish public breweries, ensure adequate supply of alcohol for the military. 1777. Frederick the Great of Prussia discovers it. Some of the soldiers started drinking coffee. He seriously criticized this behavior. Frederick the Great said so. My men must drink beer. Many battles have been won by beer-drinking soldiers. And it's for these reasons, in many places, not drinking would be an offense. It means the person has no intention of fitting in. This will bring about the rejection of the others. In some of America's taverns, if a person refuses a toast from someone, it's basically the same as insulting the other guy. It'll probably lead to a duel. In Newfoundland, Canada, people will call non-drinkers loners. People don't want to hang out with this guy. The second benefit of alcohol for building trust, it's about helping people tell the lies. Lying is a pain in the ass. Be careful not to be inconsistent, reveal a hole in STH. It takes a lot of work in the prefrontal cortex, and it's so much easier to tell the truth. Say whatever comes to mind. No effort at all to censor, so the prefrontal cortex is anesthetized by alcohol. It's easier for people to say what they mean. As the saying goes, when you've had a few drinks, you can tell the truth. In addition, we will be able to recognize expressions to determine whether or not they're lying. Many scientific studies have found, humans are very good at distinguishing between expressions, and corresponding emotions, whether it's a positive or negative emotion, whether it's a heartfelt pleasure, or is it a fake smile. We can all tell the difference in a very short time. And it's pretty accurate. Combination of words spoken and expressions shown, we can also tell if they're lying. But there are those who are gifted, it controls the muscles. Make a face that's as good as the real thing. This also requires the involvement of the prefrontal cortex, for such a master liar. Alcohol is a very effective, the polygraph, as long as he's had a few too many drinks. You can't control your expression. If you lie, you're easy to spot. For these reasons, at all times and in all places, numerous major negotiated collaborations, it's all accompanied by a succession of banquets. It takes a lot of drinking for both sides to come to an understanding. Reach agreement. Ancient Greece, drinking vows are considered sacred and reliable. In Elizabethan England, credible public statements are accompanied by alcohol. Former U.S. Secretary of State Kissinger told Deng Xiaoping that, if we drink enough Maotai, it'll solve any problem. The authors further state, alcohol brings trust and cooperation, may have contributed to the birth of an agrarian society. There's a man in Turkey called Go. The ancient remains of the town of Beckley Stone, the ruins were formed around 10,000 BC. The ruins are full of huge stone pillars. It is carved with hieroglyphics and images of various animals. These pillars weigh more than 10 tons. From a quarry 500 meters away. Archaeologists estimate, at least 500 people need to work together. It's the only way to complete the Göbekli Formation. What motivates so many people to work together? It wasn't even an agricultural society yet. People hunt and gather for a living. A tribe may only have a few dozen people. Archaeologists near the ruins, a stone basin for liquids has been found. There were glasses scattered around. In the meantime, archaeologists, we didn't find any food storage. So they hypothesized, people are drawn here by alcohol. After a few days of drinking and partying, after trust has been established, together, we finished moving and making the stone pillars. The town of Göbekli is not an exception. In many ancient ruins, archaeologists have found large gatherings where drinking is the main activity. Many of the remains date back to 10,000 BC. Much earlier than the emergence of agrarian societies, some archaeologists have proposed a hypothesis for the love of alcohol. The originally scattered primitive tribes would meet regularly and build trust in the assembly. Over time, these scattered tribes have come together, forming larger tribes to settle down. After settling down, people will have to get their food in a more efficient way. To feed a larger population, in this process, people started domesticating crops like wheat and rice. Gradual formation of an agrarian society, promoting further population growth. If this hypothesis holds, in that case, alcohol is indeed essential to the development of human civilization, of an unmarried couple, be close, speaking of which. To summarize the second part, social development requires human cooperation. Cooperation is based on trust. Alcohol is good for building trust in two ways. One is to establish emotional integrity, the second is to help people distinguish between lies. Some archaeologists have speculated that, drinking through regular gatherings, a decentralized primitive tribe builds trust. This led to the settlement of larger tribes, gradual formation of an agrarian society, until here. The authors are talking about the benefits of drinking. The author also admits that drinking can harm your health. It can also lead to violence. But in the author's opinion, the root cause of all these problems is overdrinking. If a man can control his drinking, like only 2 or 3 beers a day, there's nothing wrong with that. Part 3 below, let's talk about how to control your drinking, reducing the harms of drinking. The author makes an interesting point. Compared with the ancients, modern people are more likely to drink too much. There are 2 reasons for this. First, the invention of distilled spirits. Here's an introduction to a concept called alcohol content. It's what percentage of alcohol is in a bottle of wine. Higher proof wine, the easier it is to get drunk. The author notes that ancient wines were lower in degrees than modern wines. That's why the ancients were less likely to drink too much. Why is that? It starts with the winemaking process. You need yeast to make wine. Yeast is capable of fermenting crops, converting glucose to alcohol, but after a certain level of alcohol concentration, the yeast is then killed by the alcohol. The fermentation process stops. That's why the highest degree of ancient wine was about 16%. That's as far as the yeast goes. The ancients drank mostly beer and wine, depending on the specific process. Beer is around 2% to 5%. Wine is around 8 to 12%. None of these wines are too strong. It's not easy to get drunk even after several drinks. Out of a fascination with alcohol, some people wonder if they can continue to raise the alcohol content. Makes the drink more refreshing and topping, and it turns out there is a way. This method is distillation. The principle of distillation is simple. Alcohol has a lower boiling point than water, about 78 degrees Celsius. So if you heat the fermented wine, alcohol turns to vapor first. Just collect those alcohol vapors. Recooling, you get pure alcohol with almost no water. Based on these pure alcohols, you can make a very high-proof distilled spirit. The principle of distilling alcohol is simple to say, but it's hard to do. To precisely control the temperature of boiling alcohol, also stable collection of alcohol vapors, this all requires a complex process. Until the 13th century AD. It was only then that people became skilled enough to make distilled spirits. Common distilled spirits, including white wine, whiskey, vodka, etc. They're generally above 40% ABV. Individuals even reached 90%, compared to distilled spirits. Beer and wine are like children's drinks. With distilled spirits, it's very easy for people to drink too much. Maybe 2 or 3 drinks. He's already rambling and delirious. This creates a lot of problems. In 18th century England, large quantities of inexpensive distilled spirits made their way into common homes, resulting in a marked increase in crime and mortality rates. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, alcohol sales no longer monopolized by the state, everyone is able to buy vodka freely. For the next 3 years, Russian women's life expectancy drops by 3 years, life expectancy for men fell by 6.1 years, unbelievable range. Further research points to, this has resulted in the mass consumption of vodka by the population. Enough about distilled spirits. Here's what the modern man says, the second reason why it's easy to drink too much: drinking alone. Numerous studies have found, in ancient times, drinking was a social event. Most drinkers, it all happens at formal banquets and ceremonies. Drinking alone is rare. In these etiquette-conscious settings, people need to drink in a form that conforms to social norms. For example, at formal banquets in ancient China, people can't drink as much as they want. You can only drink when you're toasting each other. As for who has the right to make a toast, when can I make a toast? There is also a strict set of norms. With these norms in place, naturally, it's hard to drink too much. Similar traditions exist all over the world. In Georgia, the head of the party will control the interval of the powerful wine, end the party when everyone's pretty much drunk. In Japanese Shinto rituals, participants will be monitored for intoxication. If someone drinks too much, and you'll be escorted home in style. There are still plenty of places where drinking alone is seen as a bad thing. In Peru, people who drink alone are considered deviant. It's not even friendly. In Oceania, drinking alone is synonymous with witchcraft. People think people who drink alone are up to no good. And with the times, people are beginning to value individual freedom. No more of this. Bound by tradition, meanwhile more and more people are living alone. There are also more channels to buy wine than in the past. Nowadays one can fill the refrigerator with wine, drink it whenever you want. Drink as much as you want. Plus the popularity of distilled spirits, naturally, it's easy to overdo it. So in the modern world, how do people control their drinking? Claim, we need to develop a moderated drinking habit. The book calls it Southern drinking. The South in this context refers to the countries of Southern Europe. For example, Italy. Italians rarely drink distilled spirits, drinks mostly low-proof beer and wine. Wine is part of Italian food culture. You can't have a meal without wine. Even if it's a child. I also drank watered-down wine a lot, except for dinner and parties. Italians rarely drink anywhere else. Can be seen, Italians have largely shunned distilled spirits, and the problem of drinking alone. That's why Italy has a high per capita alcohol consumption, but there are very few problems caused by alcoholism. The opposite of Southern drinking is Northern drinking. Represented by Russia, high-count distillates are popular in Russia. Russian person neither combines drinking and eating, and you don't see drinking as social behavior. They often drink alone. So compared to the Italians, Russians consume less alcohol, but alcoholism causes more problems. Also Russia bans alcohol for teenagers, but for the rebellious teenager, the more alcohol is prohibited, the more attractive alcohol becomes. They'll find a way to getting alcohol and drinking it behind an adult's back. Naturally, it's easy to drink too much. All in all, authors call to learn from Italy, drink low-proof beer and wine, and integrating alcohol into everyday life, mainly at meals and parties. Drinking this way will control the amount of alcohol, in addition to fostering the male drinking habit. The author also gives 2 tips for controlling your alcohol consumption. One is to drink from a shallower glass. The glass is shallow. It's natural to drink less wine. And when drinking from a front glass, without careful balance, the wine will spill easily. So when a man drinks too much and starts to shake his hands, he'll spill it all. I can't keep drinking. The second piece of advice for controlling alcohol consumption is, ask yourself before you drink. Now do I really want to drink? A lot of people drink like a reflex. Whenever you see alcohol around you, or someone else toasts them, I'll drink it without even thinking about it. The author notes that, if we drink before, you can think a little bit about whether or not you should be drinking right now. Do you want a drink? You'll have fewer drinks that you could do without. Okay, that's it. To summarize part 3, compared with the ancients, the modern invention of a higher number of distilled spirits, and drinking alone more often. It all makes it easy to drink too much, causing all sorts of problems. Author advocates learning from Italy about southern drinking styles. Drink low-proof beer and wine, and only drink at meals and parties. That's how you control your drinking. In addition one can also use a shallower glass, and before drinking, confirm that you have a strong desire to. Speaking of which, why do we love to drink? The book is pretty much the same. Many people see drinking as a complete vice. It's only good if you don't drink at all. In the writer's opinion, this ascetic view is more than a little excessive. Alcohol does contribute to the development of society, even aside from that help. A man who has worked hard all day, have a little drink and relax. It's human nature. There's nothing to criticize. Just don't overdo it. The line has been around since the beginning of time. There's no civilization that doesn't drink. Since humans can't live without alcohol, then we need to look into it. Relationship between alcohol and humans. This is how alcohol can have a positive effect, controlling negative impacts at the same time. Listen to this program. What's your new take on drinking? Feel free to leave a comment in the comments section. Well, why do we love to drink? This book explains it all. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you all for your support and interest. Subscribe to Quick Learn's channel. Kudos, and share this valuable knowledge with friends around you. Let's combine wisdom and practice together, achieve your financial goals, creating a better future. Thank you.